Let me please start by welcoming everybody to a special online session where we're going to commemorate, I've titled it 10 plus years of Anandagiri. The reason I have titled the slideshow presentation 10 plus years of Anandagiri is because in 11 days' time, it will actually be 11 years. And but nobody celebrates 11 years, so it sounds strange. And so I settled with 10 plus years. Now, the reason I didn't get around to doing a 10-year special anniversary session last year is because my Thai visa situation was ambiguous. I did not know if I was going to be allowed to stay an 11th or 12th year at Anandagiri. And with that ambiguity, I was not in a very celebratory mood either. And I also had to put a lot of energy and effort into making a permanent residency application. So I had to produce several books and things and CV, all of that stuff. So anyway, now I have Thai citizenship. I'm feeling more in the mood to celebrate what Anandagiri has become. And so it's going to be a little challenging because it's going to be challenging for me to maintain my focus because building a monastery from scratch, literally from a hill without water or electricity or even trees, is a project that involves thousands of people, and it's a multifaceted project. So, and 11 years is a long time. So, wish me luck that I maintain my focus, and the pictures should help. The pictures should help me maintain my focus. And yes, I chose 500 photographs from about 30,000. We're now living in the digital age where people take many photographs and share photographs with me. And so there was a lot of sifting to do. Another interesting thing I have to say, slightly unusual thing, but I do have to say it, is because it is a part of the story that I don't simply want to delete, I have to mention on occasion things like auspicious dreams, the occasional meditation vision, an interesting kind of a synchronicity or something that might be seen as a positive omen. Now, of course, in being willing to talk about such things, it's a bit of a minefield because there's all sorts of opinions out there about whether or not monks should talk about such things, but not to talk about it at all if it is a valid part of one's experience that does inform one's decisions and process to some degree. Doesn't seem right. So I am going to mention these things occasionally. And I would like to preface that by saying, just because I state that I have the occasional meditation vision, the occasional auspicious dream, the occasional interesting synchronicity, I'm not making any claim to have mastery of psychic power. And at the same time, I think it's good if people understand that, for myself now, probably I have done tens of thousands of hours of meditation. So to never experience such a thing would actually be strange. So just understand that as, people who do anything a lot should develop some skills or some abilities or some sensitivities. So meditation monks also, but I do not have mastery of psychic powers. I do not have these things on a daily basis. And I do know teachers who do have the purified divine eye and mastery of psychic powers. So that is a very specific thing. It takes lifetimes to cultivate. I'm not making that claim. Having said that, let's begin. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Can everybody see that? This is a picture of a younger Ajahn Achalo 11 years ago in Ajahn Kalyano's branch monastery of Wat Nong Pha Pong outside of Melbourne. So why am I sharing this photo? I'm sharing this photo because to some degree, this is where Anandagiri began to form. What happened was I went back to Australia wondering, perhaps I will start a branch monastery. In a way, kind of following the prototype or the example of the Mahatera who have come before me, Ajahn Sumedho, Ajahn Pasanno, Ajahn Kalyano. Many Western monks will train in Thailand for a period of time, and then they go back to a Western country and oftentimes start their own place. And one of the considerations is to be closer to one's parents and to try to support them and encourage them in their old age, hopefully help them to develop spiritually. But what happened is when I went to stay with Ajahn Kalyano, I had this feeling of missing Thailand. And I remembered that when I was a young boy, I never particularly felt that Australia was my home. And so after spending 12 years in Asia, when I went back to Australia, that feeling of not really resonating, not really feeling a deep connection was even more so. So then I wasn't quite sure what to do. What is plan B? I didn't have one. But I realized then that I was a Tera, so I'd been a monk for more than 10 years. And I had some options. A good friend, two friends, Francois and Anne-Marie, French people who live in Thailand, invited me to visit Ladakh. And so I thought, okay. And I had wanted to go to Jetavana, the monastery, the Bamboo Grove Monastery, where the Lord Buddha spent, I believe, 18 rainy season retreats in that area. I had wanted to go there. So I thought, well, why don't I go to Ladakh, think about what to do with my life, perhaps spend a rainy season retreat in the Jetavana area and study suttas. And so an interesting thing happened. One day when I was meditating, I had a vision of Ganesh. And in this experience, Ganesh was holding a lotus and he was waving. And I had never had such an experience before. And I told Ajahn Kalyano, something really weird happened to Ajahn. I was meditating and this image of Ganesh appeared before me. He was white, he was holding a lotus, he was waving, and he was radiating blue, orange, and pink rays. And Ajahn Kalyano said, well, you are going to India. So Ajahn Kalyano thinks it just meant that I was going to India. But I noticed it because it was the first time that I'd had a vision of Ganesha. Anyway, so I did go to Ladakh. Here is a picture of myself meditating at 5,000 meters, a very high pass on the way to a place called Lake Somariri, a beautiful Himalayan lake. It's a very nice place to go, kind of feeling like on top of the world. You can't quite see the vision from the front. There was these mountains all around. It was like sitting in this huge lotus of mountains with white snow-topped petals. It was very spacious and grand. After I got over the 1 week headache from the altitude, here we are, meditating next to a Himalayan lake in a place called Somariri. Beautiful views, just beautiful, sapphire-like sky, sapphire-like lakes. And in Ladakh, there is a monastery. Here I am, resonating with locals. And they don't bathe very often. But who am I to judge? And I've said, these are the kind of traditional looking Tibetan style monasteries in Ladakh. Ladakh used to be a Buddhist kingdom. It is now part of India. It's the Indian Himalayas. And there is one monastery, I think it's called Tiksi Monastery, where there is a blessed statue of Maitreya, the future Buddha, Maitreya Bodhisattva. And it's if I remember correctly, there's 3 floors, and the top floor, you can literally circumambulate the face and the crown. You can circumambulate the head of the Maitreya statue. And I believe that statue was blessed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I went to meditate there and circumambulated the Maitreya statue's face and crown. Very beautiful. Now, I was meditating behind this statue, and I was just wondering, do I have to be an abbot? Do I have to build a monastery? Is that something I should even be thinking? Are there other options? As I said, I wanted to go somewhere else and just think about what I really wanted to do with the rest of my life, having been a bhikkhu for 14 years. And I wasn't expecting this, but I had the experience where I heard the statue speak. So I was meditating and I heard a voice in my head say, "You will be an abbot. It is a good thing, but it won't be where you think, and it won't happen in the way that you think." I said, "Oh, well, that's interesting." And now I'm remembering. Before I went to India, I paid respects to a senior monk in a province called Sisaket. I believe he was nearly 100 years old at the time. His name was Luang Por Piak. He was believed to be a bodhisattva practitioner. And I hadn't mentioned monasteries. I just paid respect and said, "Luang Por Kap, I'm going to India for 6 months. I'd like your blessing for safety. India can be a dangerous place." And he said to me, "In 5 months, your monastery will be ready." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." Remembering that I hadn't mentioned monasteries. And so the second experience was I was meditating in Ladakh at Tiksi Monastery behind Lord Maitreya's head. And the statue, a voice resonated in my head that said, "You will be a monk, you will be an abbot. It is a good thing, not where you think and not in the way that you think." After our time in Ladakh, we went to Jetavana. This is the beginning of the wet season. So I flew to Delhi. We got a car from Delhi to Savatthi. And it was very wet, very rainy. And this was a place where I thought I was going to spend 3 months. And it was raining so much. But I'd made a vow that at the very least, I will do my puja at the Buddha's kuti in the Jetavana for 10 days at the very least. So that meant even if it was raining, I went and I did my puja. And I also had another intention. I was going, because Jetavana was the place where Lord Buddha spent most of his time, many of us believe that there's a lot of accumulated blessings and good energy there. So I went, it's kind of like the Buddha's headquarters in this world while in his last life. And so I went there and I said, "Lord Buddha," speaking to the blessings and the merit of the Buddha, I said, "Lord Buddha, this is actually bhikkhu. I'm from Australia, I've been living in Thailand. This is the extent of my merits. This is the extent of my delusions, karma and kilesa. Please help me find a place where I can continue my training in a way that is beneficial to others and sustainable to myself." And then it turns out that even when it's raining in Savatthi, it's about 36 degrees Celsius and about 98% humidity. And after 10 days of this, I thought to myself, I don't think I can take this for 3 months. It's very, very wet. And so an interesting thing happened. When we got the tickets, Francois arranged my ticket. It was cheaper to get the full round trip than it was to get 3 flights to Delhi and then to Leh and Ladakh back to Delhi. And so I had the return ticket and I looked at the date and I realized that if I returned the next day, I would make it back to Thailand in time for what they call the second pansaa, which means entering the rainy season retreat 1 month late. And my good friend Ajahn Nyanico had invited me to his monastery, Phetchabun, on the border of Laos. Actually, it was a monastery that I was once an abbot of for 1 year. And he said, Ajahn Achalo, if anything happens, you need a plan B, you're welcome here. So I decided to take up the plan B. And I came back so it ended up being 6 weeks in Ladakh and 10 days in Savatthi. And then I was back in Thailand and I spent that rainy season retreat, my 14th in Ubon. At that time, a man came to visit who knew me from the time when I was the abbot of that place 3 years earlier. So for my 11th year as a bhikkhu, I was an abbot in that monastery, Phetchabun. So the man, there's 2 men, so one's wearing a scarf. The man without the scarf, his name was Mo Silapa, Dr. Silapa, and he was an acupuncturist and a herbal doctor, and he had worked with people with HIV. And he came to visit me and he said, Ajahn Achalo, I have a friend in Phetchabun Khao who has some land that he wants to offer to a monk for a monk to develop. And I'd like to invite you to go and have a look at it. Now, what's very interesting about this is that was exactly 5 months from the time that Luang Por Piak said, in 5 months, your monastery will be ready. And given that it was a place that I'd never heard of, literally, I've never heard the word Phetchabun, which is the province I live in. It's not a very famous province. It's a farming province. It's a place where the vegetables are grown. It's not a big tourist site. More recently, it has become a tourist destination for Thai people, but in those days, no. So I called up Ajahn Anan and I said, Ajahn, I've been invited to Phetchabun. First of all, I had to ask my friend, long-term student and friend, Malin, where's Phetchabun? And she said, I've lived in Thailand for 10 years. She said, well, it's kind of smack in the middle of nowhere, smack in the middle of the country, but it's very mountainous. And I think you'll like it. You should have a look. I called up Ajahn and he said, yeah, go and have a look. Achalo, this might be your place. So Francois drove me and we came to Phetchabun. So here we are on the property the first time that I came to look at it. As you can see, there's not much. This is Khun Sohn, the man who wanted to offer the land. So the original piece was about 7 acres. And this spot where he's sitting now is just a couple of meters in front of where I am right now. Now, what's very interesting about when I came to this piece of land, it's hard to describe and I don't have pictures. 11, 12 years ago, it was before smartphones and we didn't have a camera on us at all times clicking away like people do now. So I can't quite capture that the road was steep and had very deep ruts in it. And that there's no water and there's no electricity. So you have a almost impassable road, no water, no electricity, not many trees to speak of. And a very strange thing happened because when I stood on this land, I had a feeling, a very deep intuitive feeling. It was like, I might die here. I could die here. And I have never had such a feeling or such a resonance occur in my mind before. And it wasn't like somebody's going to kill you, you're going to die here. It was more like, no, I may live my life contentedly here until I die. Now, this was a bit surprising to me because I did know that to develop such a place would be entailing a great deal of hardship. There was nothing. And but at the time I was 38 and probably needed a creative project. So I was considering it, seriously considering it. So this is standing where our current meditation hall exists, this was the view. I don't know if you can see my little arrow here. This is where the chedi is now. This is where our Maha Terakuti is. This is where our eating hall is. And where I am now is where our meditation hall is. But as you can see, there was nothing. And it was a bit scary because the road was so steep and so thin. There was only one, and the ruts were so deep. There was only one way to get up, and that's pedal to the metal and just go. But you had to really hope that there wasn't a car coming in the other direction, because there was no space to pull to the side or make way for another car. It was literally, let's hope there's only one car going up this road. And so another view. So this is where our Dharma hall is now. That's what the Anandagiri looked like 11 years ago. And here I was, standing where this kuti is now, giving it some serious consideration. Maybe this will be where I build a monastery. So after this, I went to meditate in Bodh Gaya and to consider. No, I have to tell you. So I did spend an evening on the property. When I was meditating, I had a vision in my meditation where I saw a huge bodhi tree, maybe 50 meters tall and 50 meters wide. And I thought, well, that is a good thing to see in one's meditation. And when I slept here on the first night, I had a dream, a very interesting dream. I dreamt that the trail from where I am now basically, was where the first little kuti, 3 meters by 3 meters. There's a little steep section coming up, about a 20-minute walk path, 20 meter. I dreamt that there were golden eggs just under the surface of the soil, lots of them. And the thing about dream language or visual language, visions, is that you kind of intuitively know the meaning. And I deduced from this a very good meaning. To build a monastery, you're going to need some funds. And the message seemed to be that how do you make eggs hatch? You have to sit, right? And so for me, what that seemed to suggest was, if I just do my practice here, if I sit a lot, these eggs will hatch. So it seemed a good omen. But I still wasn't sure because I knew it was going to be really hard. So I went to Bodh Gaya and I was wondering what to do. Back to India, Mother India, the place where I have gone many times to have a break and get a new perspective and increase my efforts of practice at the same time. And I had a very nice dream in Bodh Gaya. So probably I have a certain character type. I think a lot of other monks wouldn't base their decisions upon dreams and visions. But if something is, if you're having doubts about something, but then you appear to have an auspicious dream, then that's the kind of encouragement. So I dreamt that a large green dragon, I guess about 1 mile in length, came down from heaven and lay on the land. So he stretched his tail down to part where there's some grass-walled kutis now, came up to where my kuti is now, curved around to where the current meditation hall is, and his head rested at the edge of the property. Now, what's very interesting about this particular dream is that we had one piece of land at the time, 7 acres. And it turns out now, 11 years later, that where the dragon had laid down is now all the monastery land. We now have 175 rai. So we added another 168. And so that's interesting. Sometimes for big projects to work, auspicious projects to work, there have to be some kind of supportive conditions, and possibly beings in unseen realms already know how things might pan out before we do. Particularly, I would suggest, if one makes dedications and requests and prayers at holy sites asking for the assistance of unseen beings, which I had been doing. I'd been making requests for clarity and for support in holy sites in various places for several years. So after that dream, I felt more confident. Yes, I will. Ajahn Anan passed through a Bodh Gaya at the time, and I told him about the dream. And I told him I had a thought for a name, Anandagiri. Ajahn Anan's name is Anan. So I was thinking Anandagiri because I wanted it to have a connection to him. But he said it's not a good name because his name, Anandagiri, meant never-ending mountains. And he said that's not such a good name because it could mean never-ending ups and downs. He said, however, if you tweak it slightly and you go for the name of Venerable Ananda, Lord Buddha's attendant, that means bliss, mountain of bliss, or mountain of rapture, mountain of tranquility. So he said, under the Bodhi tree, he suggested that name. And I said, okay, that's how Anandagiri got its name, mountain of bliss. And mountain of tears, and mountain of heartbreaks, and mountain of struggles, but there has been some bliss too. So one thing I was concerned about was the village seemed quite poor, and I wasn't sure if they actually wanted to have to support monks. In our tradition, we have to go for alms. So I went for alms round, and this is the first blessing in the village on the first alms round. And I asked the villagers, do you want monks? Do you want to feed a monk? Because at the time I was also quite sure that I didn't want a kitchen. I didn't want a kitchen scene. I wanted to be able to exist off of the alms food. And you will see that there are several bags to the right of me, and my bowl is full. So if my memory serves me correctly, I got 3 full bowls of food on that day from this rather poor-looking village. And when I asked people, do you want monks? And they said, well, we've been praying that we could have a monastery in our village for 10 years. Please, Venerable, please come and stay. And I said, well, if we end up being 5 monks, do you think you can feed us? I don't want to be a burden to you. And they said, yes, we will happily feed you. And to this day, I can attest to the fact that 11 years later, this village has always given us more food than we need. So it's very, very touching. Skipping to Nepal here, there's a Western-looking lady in the front. The reason I have to bring this picture up is building new monasteries from scratch require big donors, at least a few. Anne-Marie offered 1.5 million baht in the very first year. That was enormously helpful because, as I said, we didn't have an electricity system or water system. So we needed to grade our road. We needed to pave some concrete to make it safe and passable. We needed to drill a well. We needed some water tanks. We needed to connect electricity. It all cost money. So she was one big sponsor. That was very helpful. This monk, Tanasoko, is currently the attendant monk of Luang Por Sumedho. He came with me to Anandagiri and spent the first year, and he was very helpful in helping. We had some hill tribe people make our first generation of kutis out of grass thatch, and he helped to design them, and he helped to liaise, and he helped. I did not know anything at the time about electricity or water systems, and he did help with that, and that was helpful. After 1 year, Ajahn Sumedho needed an attendant and asked him if he would mind helping him, and he did go to live at Ratanawan and take care of Luang Por Sumedho for many years. Now he lives at Amarawati with Ajahn Sumedho. Here we have Malin in the middle. I asked her, please be my committee member. And next to her is there's two ladies, but one of them, this one, also I asked her to be a committee member. When you start being involved with money as a monk in our tradition, I can't personally own those funds. So it has to go into an account under a kind of a charity name, and you need co-signees, etc. So I started my committee, Malin and Anne and another lady called Medao. Yom Dao was another of my committee members. Now these people, Malin and Dao, were enormously helpful because what happened, I was learning about making projects, and I would set my budget. And the most I'd ever bothered anybody for was a plane ticket. And sometimes several people would help me with a plane ticket. So to start this project where significant funds were needed, I never wanted to ask for more than was necessary. But what ended up happening, I soon learned, was with your best efforts at budgeting, it always costs more than you thought. And suppose you have a kuti being built and you have estimated the labor costs, and then something comes up that you hadn't thought about, or something needs to be redone. The way it works in Thailand often, unfortunately, is that if you don't want the builders to run away, you have to pay them to undo it and pay them to redo it. And it ends up when they do something wrong, and it ends up costing more than you thought. So these people, when I would mention to Malin, I've got a problem, need 10,000 baht to finish something, or Medao, I have a problem, we need a bit more to be able to finish this, because you want the sponsors to be happy. You want them to feel that what they gave for was completed properly, and you don't want to have to call them up and say, hey, I need to hit you up for another 10 or 15 or 20%. So I really tried not to do that. And so these people were enormously helpful in mentioning to their many friends. And so to make a monastery, you need a couple of big sponsors, and then you need literally hundreds, possibly thousands of small sponsors to kind of add up to make projects come to fruition. This lady with the mala here, Noi, she from the Share Building Company, she offered us building materials to build our first 4 kutis and engineering support. And we had to find the labor costs. So that was very helpful for us. So this was what we lived in for the first 3 months. I lived in this for the first 3 months. A couple of the other monks lived in it for 9 months. Bamboo structure made of grass thatch walls, and no water. You have to carry the water down in that, like a bottle, big bottle, carry the water down. You have to use this water to something that people won't appreciate, and it's almost impossible for me to recollect as well, was newly graded roads with building projects, just how much mud there is in the wet season in a new monastery in Thailand is unbelievable. By the time you get back to your grass kuti, you have like 2 inches of mud stuck to the bottom of your flip-flops. And every step is kind of like, it was unpleasant. And so you get to your kuti, and you had to use your water to wash your feet and wash your sandals. And of course, when it came time to go back up the mountain, down for alms round, there was more mud. And the wet season goes for 4 or 5 months. And that first year is just like putting down stones, and then the heavy trucks come in and push the stones back down into the mud, and the mud is just never-ending mud. It's amazing. And the other big challenge was I was very determined to plant trees. And so this was what the monastery looked like after 1 year. So you can see there are stones on the road. You can see we have some kutis and a nice eating hall with a grass roof, and it's starting to look quite civilized. But it was a lot of work to get there. And it's good that it's hard in the beginning, right? Because mind you, I don't think I'd do it again. I have no regrets, but if you were to ask me if I would do it again, I wouldn't. I knew it was going to be hard, and it was about 10 times harder than I thought. So one of the things that's hard about becoming an abbot in Thailand is you have to work with the skills that you have, but you have to develop all sorts of new skills that you don't yet have. And you have to do it all at the same time. So once you've started, you don't really get a break. So you have to start learning about water systems, electrical systems, forestry projects, how to help the villagers. And just stuff comes up, like having to worry about money is one of the things that you really don't want to have to do as a monk. It was part of the happiness of my monk's life for those first 15 years was never to have to worry about money. Now, all of a sudden, I'm an abbot, and I'm wondering, for example, we planted 6,000 trees in the first year, but I had no idea that the grass was going to need to be cut 5 times a year. And to cut the grass, by then, after 1 year, we already had 100 rai, 50 acres. And it turns out that to cut the grass 5 times a year cost about 150,000 baht. What's that? 6,000 Australian dollars. It's a lot of money. So where is the money going to come from to cut the grass? Now, if you don't cut the grass grows so fast, and it actually grows to an extent of 3 meters. So in tropical countries, the grass grows to 3 meters. And they actually call the grass communist grass because this area was an area of communist insurgency, and it was extremely difficult to get rid of the communists. So the point is, this grass is as difficult to get rid of as communists. Anyway, a Malaysian group passed through towards the end of the year, and it was an interesting synchronicity. Now, there was another interesting dream. I was, this lower part of our hall was being built. And I was sitting here, and I'd had a dream that these 3 trucks drove up our hill. They're called songtaos. Songtao means 2 rows. These trucks had 2 rows in the back. It's like a pickup truck with 2 rows in the back that people sit on. And I had a dream that 3 of these trucks drove up the hill, and people came out and started unloading oranges. Now, what's interesting is 2 days later, 3 songtaos came up the hill containing, 40 or 50 Chinese Malaysians. Now, nobody really knew this monastery was here, but what it was the acupuncturist doctor was leading a tour of great Ajahns in Thailand. And it just so happened, I'm not saying I'm a great Ajahn, it just so happened that we were along the way. And so Mosin Lapa, he brought his group of Malaysians up, and then I asked him a question. So people of Chinese ethnicity will understand that orange has a meaning, doesn't it? Orange means gold or wealth. You offer it in front of your shrine. So, and the Chinese Malaysians are famous for being generous. So I asked them, this group, who did you pay respects to, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I asked them, okay, so how many of you meditate regularly? And I think out of about 50 people, 2 people put their hands up. And I scolded them a bit. I said, what's the point of coming and paying respects to all of these Ajahns all over the place, where everywhere you go, they're going to tell you that you need to meditate. And none of you are meditating yet. And I felt slightly frustrated with them. And I said, well, how about this? How about I lead you in a guided meditation now? And they said, okay. And I literally had to go downstairs and tell the workers to stop using their drills and saws and hammers so that I could lead the 20-minute guided meditation. So I did lead them in a guided meditation. And I did suggest to them, since all of these great Ajahns that you're visiting are suggesting that you practice dana, sila, and bhavana, please commence a daily meditation practice. And this group then invited me to teach a meditation retreat in Malaysia. And that's how my connection with the Malaysian group of Brother Teo and Brother Sui An initially happened. And this was our humble little monastery after 1 year. With these very nice kutis that Noi's building supplies company offered us the materials for. As I mentioned, the village wasn't very wealthy, so in the very first year, we started offering an annual scholarship, like an education bursary. I felt that it was important that since the monastery was being well supported, we should share some of our resources. And again, the Malaysian group was helpful. My Malin and Medar were helpful, just mentioning to people how Ajahn Achalo wants to give some education bursary to the kids. And so we did that. Every year we have done that since the first year. We continue to give, and we also started sponsoring individuals to finish high school and higher education. Ajahn Pasanno visited at the end of 1 year. That was very helpful and very encouraging. I had been Luang Por Pasanno's monk's attendant in his last year in Thailand before he moved to co-found Abhayagiri Monastery in California. And I loved him very much, like a father. He used to massage his feet, and he used to listen to me, lament and complain, and express all my doubts as a young monk in Northeast Thailand. And I also spent 2 years, a year and a half in California at Abhayagiri Monastery to go and study with him further, so that he came and blessed Anandagiri at the end of 1 year. It was very helpful. Quite a jolly bhikkhu. Tree planting. I know I was way too thin then. I agree. Don't worry. I'm much more plump now. Khun Kai, this man next to me, is a forestry department worker, and he was very helpful in finding trees for us free of charge, thousands and thousands of trees, because we've planted many, many trees. Altogether, we've planted 25,000 trees. I think we had official tree plantings on 8 of the past 11 years, and we will be having another one in June of this year. So I made sure to involve the villagers whenever we had a tree planting day. They are pretty good with hose, and they know how to work with green things. So I would involve the villagers and the kids. I really wanted them to feel that it was their monastery, their forest monastery, and that if I felt that if they were involved in actually planting the trees, then that would be, a wonderful way to get a felt connection, literally putting down roots in this place as their monastery. And also, we sometimes have fires pass through, and because the villagers do feel involved and they feel that it's their monastery, they come and help put out the fire before it burns the forest. It's very helpful. The kids have a lot of fun. Some of my grassroots local mates always there for every tree planting, handing the Ajahn some ice cream like you do. So this boy here, the one, is 19 now, and Kim, she's 18, but this is what they looked like when they were young and cute. And we've been giving him a scholarship, monthly scholarship, and he's just enrolled in technical college. He's becoming an electrician. She's in her last year of high school. So this was the view of our cut grass now. So I don't know if you can see, but there's little bamboo stakes here, and there's little trees there. So when we planted the trees, they were 50 centimeters tall. The trunks were less than 1 centimeter thick. And this was this grass that I had to get cut 5 times a year so that it wouldn't smother the trees, because if the trees don't get light, they don't grow. But we had that beautiful view facing west. Our first Buddha statue, and the lady I mentioned, Anne-Marie, was helpful, kind in offering a statue from Nepal, hand-carved stone statue from one of Nepal's greatest sculptors. I felt that the land, because this area was an area of communist insurgency and it was a war zone for about 15 years, there many people had died and there were presence of ghosts. And I felt that we needed to brighten up the atmosphere. So we were laying the foundation plaque of our first chedi, which is just 3 meters tall. And many of my monk friends came. Ajahn Anan did not come, and I had hurt feelings, but I won't go into that too much. He did send a van full of his monks. And once again, I tried to involve the villagers. So every village, we had a jade mala of 108 beads, and I had every villager throw in one of the beads and throw in some flower petals as involving them in helping to, this is the foundation plaque, just mentioning that the chedi was being made in what year, on what day, on what month. Here the chedi is arriving. Here I'm welcoming one of our Buddha statues from Nepal, very beautiful, hand carved. And people started offering me amulets, and I didn't quite know, I wasn't so skilled I didn't know how to do it yet. So I just mixed in the amulets with the concrete, just like extra stones. I did ask Ajahn Anan to please bless them. There were 3,000 amulets. Ajahn Anan did bless them. And then so that's what it looked like when it was finished. Beautiful little chedi on the highest part of the land. Beautiful Buddha statue carved in Thailand from sandstone. It's the one that's right behind me now. He was outside for 10 years under a bodhi tree. I did work with the sculptor, explaining that I wanted the face to be more of a Gandhara style and that kind of ancient Buddhism of Afghanistan. So we have a sign. This says, this is a place of practice for the Sangha. It's an area of harmlessness. Please be restrained with your body, speech, and mind. Now, one of the reasons we had to put this sign is hunters used to come. The monastery property joins an area of forest reserve, and hunters used to come and kill animals, hunt animals there. For the first couple of months, I heard gunshots most nights. And so we had to put up these signs to say, this is now an area of harmlessness, please. And it was effective. The hunters did stop coming. And you'll notice I'm already starting to use terracotta bricks. I have a thing about, I like things to look traditional. I especially like the architecture of the Kathmandu Valley, the Newari people of the Kathmandu Valley. So I love to use terracotta brickwork. And I designed the sign. I guess this was one of my first things I designed, right? I started by designing signs. I designed this meditation platform. And it was inspired by things that I had seen in Nepal. Here we are laying a car park. I have a thing about concrete. I don't like grey concrete. So although there's grey concrete underneath, I insisted that we put terracotta bricks into the concrete so that it wouldn't look like concrete. This was our car park. Again, making a sign, being careful. The villagers came and helped me with the car park project. I reminded one of them today and they complained. They said, yes, Ajahn, you said it would take a couple of hours. And I remember being there from 8 until 5. Anyway, I didn't know much yet about how long it would take. So this was nice. We decided to move a bodhi tree. The man who offered the initial property decided to offer a bodhi tree. And no, he'd mentioned that if I wanted it, that he'd be willing to offer it. And I did want it because, as I said, just these barren hills, it didn't really feel much like a forest monastery yet. So to actually have some Buddhist things, some statues, a small chedi, a bodhi tree, was helpful. many people would turn up and say, what is this place? Is it a resort? No, it's not a resort. It's a monastery, because it didn't look like a forest monastery yet. It does now. And it turned out that the crane wasn't strong enough to get up the steep hill. So the villagers had to pull the crane up the hill so that the crane could drop the tree into the hole. There they are. But we all had a lot of fun. Now, the thing about uprooting a bodhi tree, a fully grown bodhi tree, is I didn't know anything about these things yet. So nothing happened for like 2 months. And I was like, this is terrible. I don't want to kill a bodhi tree. I don't want a bodhi tree to die on top of the monastery. This would be very inauspicious. I want an auspicious bodhi tree. So I literally started coming out when nobody was looking and hugging the bodhi tree and saying, please live, don't die, don't die. You'll destroy my reputation. Anyway, the bodhi tree did, after 3 months, send out a few sprouts, and it's a very healthy and big bodhi tree now. So we built a Mahatera kuti. This is a receiving kuti for when senior monks come, and this is our library. Again, the Noise Building Supplies Company helped with offering material. I did the design. The way I do designs is I draw them on a graphic paper, and then their architect and their engineer takes over and does it to scale. But I did come up with the design, and this is how things looked after 2 years. From a different angle. So you can see my Nepali influenced aesthetic preference. This doubles as a walking meditation path. It's also a path into the kuti. So we were now capable of receiving senior monks suitably. Beautiful afternoon light. The bodhi tree sprouted, as you can see. It didn't die. So we used to do our evening meditation here in the hot season, in the gentle breeze at night time. It's very nice. And that's what the view used to be. Now it's literally all trees. We don't have that view anymore. This is the Malaysian group coming on their second trip. They offered some funds, and the first official fundraising event. I think you can see Auntie Joyce there. There she is. Prayer flags. So this is we've just jumped one more year, the end of the 3rd year. Ajahn Pasanno came to be the senior monk at our first Katina ceremony. I didn't know how to do it, and I called him up and I said, Ajahn Siri, could you please come to my Katina? I don't know how to do it. And he was very kind. He knows about the right Pali chants and announcements, and he helped me for my first Katina. So I was very grateful. Arms round. This is a tradition. Theravada monastics in Thailand go for alms in the morning just after sunset. The villagers offer some curry. You can see here there's fish, fruit, juice, and cake. Very, very sweet. They're offering us curries, rice, fruit, and sweet things. Just the village headman and his daughter. Some of my friends, I think this is our 4th year here now. And, Ajahn Pavaro had come to live with me by that stage. German monk Ajahn Chittavira and English monk Ajahn Punyo came to spend the rainy season retreat. One of our Buddhas from Nepal. Lovely chedi. Beautiful light. Okay, year 3. I feel a connection, as many people know, to Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. And in Theravada Buddhism, that's sometimes frowned upon. Shouldn't have Mahayana images in the monastery. And I was a bit worried that the senior monks came, they might criticize me. But what happened is we'd got to almost the 3-year point, and hardly any senior monks had come. And I just decided, you know what, I need this. Because by this stage, I was aware of just how many ghosts there were. And well, no, I was not yet fully aware of how many ghosts there were, but let's just say I was more aware of how many ghosts there were. And some nights when I was walking meditation, I could feel this sad energy in the valleys surrounding the monastery. And I just felt like I needed some help. And I wanted to ask the Bodhisattva to please help these ghosts. And so with the help of Joyce, Miss Lee, Chai Ek, we found in Malaysia images from China that we liked. And then we found out where they were produced, and we liaised with the owner of the quarry and factory, explained what we wanted. And we came up with this beautiful image carved in granite from Fujian province. And a very interesting thing happened. As soon as we got this monastery, this beautiful statue in place, Ajahn Sumedho contacted me by email and told me that he wanted to come and visit. And now I had a problem, because we didn't really have a large enough space to receive. The only space that was large enough to receive the crowds that would come if Ajahn Sumedho came had just a Kuan Yin statue. So I soon realized that I now need a Buddha. I need a big Buddha now, because the monks are coming. And so I was lucky, people supported me to go and look at beautiful statues carved from Burmese marble in MaeChee in Chiang Mai province. And I liaised to tweak this particular statue. Here I'm putting in lapis lazuli as the eyeballs. That was my little touch that I wanted to add, because just whiteness, somehow it wasn't quite alive enough feeling. So I asked them if they could please carve lapis for me so that I could put in lapis eyes. And I liaised with them to design because I wanted it to match the nature. So we chose a green marble for the lotus and for the halo. And it's a bit of a fusion of a Thai style with an Indian style. This is a Thai style Buddha, this is a Thai style lotus, and this is an Indian halo, for those of you who might be interested. Here it's arriving at the monastery, just days before Ajahn Sumedho comes. And here we had a polished, round halo, literally on the edge of a cliff. And as it arrived, it started raining. And we were standing on this slippery granite with this highly polished, round halo, trying to get it in place while it rained. Anyway, the villagers had some fun. Some Malaysians may recognize this is Yihao, had come up to visit at the time. Yihao now is in his first year of university in Florida. They grow up, don't they? Pavaro was enjoying it. Ajahn Achalo was so happy. The Buddha is here in time for Ajahn Sumedho. Here's our local villagers. They've always been great whenever we've had a delivery of something heavy, that they've come up to help. These are our local backbone of local support. And there we have it. Our Indian Rajasthani green marble with Burmese marble Buddha statue, just in time for Ajahn Sumedho to come and be the senior monk at our katina. So as you can see, when Ajahn Sumedho came, a lot of monks came, and we put some relics into a reliquary and put the reliquary into the crown of the Buddha statue. So that was a very auspicious occasion. At the katina, again, the Malaysians, faithful Malaysians attended. This is Brother Tio, who often brought members of his group. Ajahn Kavali attended, and there were the lay people. They literally had to sit on the dirt road. We just put out plastic mats because that's all we had. But we all had a good time. And then we decided we did also bless the Kuan Yin statue. We did some chanting. We had some Anan from Malaysia, Chinese nun, come and do the Heart Sutra in Mandarin. And then I also joined in, did some Tibetan chanting. My poor rendition of Tibetan chanting anyway, but with faith. We decorated with a lot of beautiful yellow marigolds. This is an idea that I learned and copied from India. Essentially, when you go to Bogai, you see these beautiful flowers, marigolds in water bowls. So I'd actually bought the water bowls back from one of my trips to India, and got beautiful yellow flowers in them. So it's a very beautiful statue with the bamboo was there. The bamboo is a local native, and it just reminded me of the Buddha in the bamboo grove, the first monastery. It's a lovely outdoor Buddha. This is the beginning of the design for our meditation hall. Yes, my sketch. This is the noise company Shera helped after that with the engineering and the design. Here we are, digging the holes, villages. We had to make the platform for the Buddha statue first because the Buddha statue weighed 5 tons and it was on the edge of the hill. And we had to get the Buddha statue in place before we built the walls and the roof. So, beautiful Buddha. So Noi, the lady who had been helping us with the building supplies company, her mother had advancing dementia and she wanted to make powerful merit to dedicate specifically to her mum. And so she'd seen this Buddha statue and she wanted to offer it. And I felt at the time that it was too big, too beautiful, too expensive because it's made from Italian marble and it's the very best craftsmanship. And Noi asked a second time and a third time, and she wanted to make this merit. She had the resources. And so then I finally decided, okay, well, if she wants to offer it, I'm not asking for it. Let this lady make this merit for her mother. Several other people also joined in. Very beautiful Buddha statue. The grey colouring is natural part of the stone from the Carrara area of Italy. So we also got a Kuan Yin for the same Dhamma hall. And here we are welcoming Kuan Yin as well. Nice picture. Before the walls, before the roof, the Buddha was there first. Beginning of our Dhamma hall. One of my lay supporters asked me, is there anything missing in your Dhamma hall? And I said, yeah, there's a car park in front, which I just don't want it to look like a car park. I want to turn it into a devotional space. So I'd like to replant another bodhi tree. If you could please help me find a bodhi tree. In Thailand, you can buy these trees which have been dug up and have them replanted. And if you replant a big tree just before the wet season, it usually survives. So she asked me, how big do you want the tree to be, Ajahn? And I said, as big as possible. Now, at the time, I didn't realize, as big as possible to me meant like 20 or 30 centimeters. So anyway, you can see, can you see the tree behind? She found this 62-year-old tree that 2 people couldn't put their arms around. And we had a dilemma because my local crane could lift 3 tons, the crane that I had used before. And she said to me, I asked her, well, how heavy is this tree? She sent me a picture. Will this tree be suitable? I said, well, it does look a bit big. And she said, I asked her, how heavy is it? She said, it's 6 tons. And they said, okay, well, if I get 2 3-ton cranes, maybe it's possible. So it's from 5 provinces away. When the tree gets to the nearest province where she has a truck, the crane lifts it off and she discovers actually it weighs 16 tons. This is a problem. And she's crying. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I was like, well, I don't know what to do either. So she got on the phone and she started calling, and it turned out that there was a medium-sized crane, not a big crane, not a small crane, a medium-sized crane where the wheel carriage was kind of in somewhat. The wheels weren't towards the front and the back. The wheels were more towards the center. And she called up the guy crying and she asked him, will you please try? And he sent out a scout to come and look at our steep roads and our tight corners. And he felt that it really might be possible that the crane could get up the hill. And the crane did get up the hill. Now, this had implications for the future projects of Anandagiri. Now that Ajahn Achalo understood, we can get a real crane up the hill. More to come. So we were able to plant the 62-year-old tree. We planted it on the 26th. In Thailand, they buy lottery numbers with the last 2 digits, sometimes the last 3 digits. You go and you get the piece of paper, and people 2 villages away bought 62 because it was a 62-year-old tree, and the local villagers bought 26 because it was planted on the 26th, and it came out as 62, and the local villagers were upset with me, and I said, well, it had nothing to do with me. Who wins the lottery that seems to depend on who knows how to give the right meaning to things. But it did come out as 62. Half finished. Here I am explaining to the bricklayer how I want the bricks laid so that they look Indian/Nepali style. And I have an interesting way of training people because monks don't like to get upset and they don't like to raise their voices. But sometimes the Thai workers, they don't understand that flat means flat and straight means straight. So at the end of the day, I would go and have a look. And sometimes the bricks, they were not flat and they were not straight. And I would bring out my chisel and my hammer and boom, 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 undo the bricks. And the next day, I would go and see the worker and I would say, flat means flat, straight means straight, okay? And smile. And that's how I train my bricklayers. I don't yell at them. I just undo their work and make them do it again. Khun Jintina has now arrived. She helped co-sponsor, one of Ngoi's friends, she helped to co-sponsor the costs of building this Dharma hall. Beginning to come together now. Finished meditation hall. And a recovering tree. In the evening, pleased, content with our new meditation hall. My dear beloved second monk who abandoned me, went back to live in Canada. Our first katina in the new Dhamma hall. Jintina was the co-sponsor, as were the Malaysians. Malaysian group. Another tree planting. We acquired another 50 rai, another 25 acres. There was going to be a resort built. Somebody was going to buy the land and build a resort, and I was concerned about karaoke. So we bit the bullet and got this extra piece of land. It was quite expensive, and we fortunately were able to get it and pay for it, and now it is completely covered in trees. And there is no resort with karaoke bar. This is a bodhi tree sprouted from the seed of the bodhi tree in India. Many soldiers come. It's very nice in Thailand. You can ask the soldiers to come and help dig the holes. That's very helpful. And then the villagers walk around, take the tree out of the plastic, put it in the hole, and dig the soil back in. If the soldiers dig the holes will be deeper, and the tree will be more likely to survive. So this is what the monastery looked like from on top of the new meditation hall after 5 years. As you can see, we have a forest growing. Cutting the grass 5 times a year is working. Beautiful sense of a forest monastery growing. Ajahn Anan finally comes after 5 years. When I accepted the land at Anandagiri, one of my reservations was I didn't have students in that area. I'd never lived in that area. I felt that I needed help. My students were in Bangkok and Ubon. This was a 9-hour drive from Bangkok, a 6-hour drive from Bangkok, a 9-hour drive from Ubon. My teacher said, I will help you. And let's just say karma. Due to karma, Ajahn Anan, my karma and his karma, when I came to build this monastery, Ajahn Anan was having many health problems. He had arrhythmia of the heart, high blood pressure, and very low blood platelets. And so whenever he set the date to come, he was aware that if he came, his health may suffer further. And keeping in mind that in this area there were many ghosts, and if a great monk comes, many of those ghosts are going to come and ask for help. And so he had the mental energy, but his physical body at the time was not yet strong enough. And so after getting some good medicines to help with the blood platelets, and after a surgical procedure that helped with the arrhythmia, Ajahn was strong enough to come and visit. And that was a great joy to me. And we put relics in the crown of the Buddha statue in the meditation hall as well. What do you think Ajahn Anan is saying in this picture? See, I'm making aspirational prayers and dedicating merits, and Ajahn Anan's looking at me. You know what he's saying? He's saying, this is heavy, Achalo. Help me with this. Yeah, happy. My Luang Por finally came to bless me at my monastery. I was very happy, very relieved, very grateful. This is the women's section at the 5-year point. It was important to me to make sure that there were kutis for 8 precept nuns. So we accomplished that by the 3rd year, actually. And here we have the tree growing. A concrete road coming into the monastery, a lovely orange pinkish shade. There's a way of rubbing iron oxide into the concrete before it sets. That makes it an orangish color. Here we go. This is the very beginning of our chedi. So what happened was, as I mentioned, there were certain days where I would feel sad energies around. And one night I had a dream where I saw 50,000 ghosts standing in front of the monastery. In my intuitive sense was, that's how many there were. There were a lot. How do I know they were ghosts? Their heads were equal to the surface of the land. So they were below the land. The head touched the surface. So in Pali, we say amanut, amanusa, not human. Also, they had no radiance. Their eyes were dull, but they were wearing white and they had their hands in Anjali. Now, I did not like this dream. I was thinking, what on earth are 50,000 ghosts doing standing in front of this monastery? This cannot be auspicious. Why are they there? I want them to go away. This is at the 5-6 year point. And then because I am a nice guy, my heart began to soften. And as I was thinking about this situation, I was thinking, well, this used to be a war zone. And beings who die when their minds are not wholesome, or if they've made heavy karma, or if they die in their sleep, not expecting to die, they get stuck. And beings with not much merit don't have choice. It's like the human realm. If you're a low-paid worker, you don't have the money to buy an international ticket. you can't get a ticket somewhere else and fly business class. It's a similar situation. They had to come to the monastery that they had, and this is what they had. And then it just dawned on me, they need help. The fact that they're wearing white and they have their hands in Anjali means they are respectful. And then I felt, okay, I should help them. And came up with the idea of building a chedi. The reason I decided to build a chedi is because Lord Buddha explains that of all of the things that one can build, a chedi produces the most merit. Another reason I decided to build a chedi is because Thai people love building chedis. So it would be something that they would enjoy. And also, poor people could help because, they could offer a few bricks. Wealthy sponsors could help by offering some of the images contained within the chedi. It's a way where everybody can contribute a little bit. I also involve the villagers very often in unloading bricks. So I came up with a design and proof. Ajahn Achalo really did draw the original plan of the chedi himself. That's my sketch. Later on, an architect came up with a more digital impression. And so we start preparing the space. Here I'm extending the platform to make 2 more levels. And even the wiring under the chedi has meaning. You will notice that this has 8 spokes like a Dharma wheel. And it actually had 12 holes for foundations, which were representative of the 12 factors of dependent co-arising in the Paticca Samuppada, what Lord Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree. So we had 12 holes and 8 spokes so that we would have this. I placed it on a large rock essentially because I knew it would be heavy. I had no idea it was going to be as heavy as it was, but it was a good choice to place it there because it's very heavy, being mostly made of rock and concrete. And so it's dug into the stone. Once again, grey concrete is not allowed. Making a platform. Unloading the bricks together with the villagers. We did this many, many, many times. Involving the kids. It was very nice. MaeChee Amy was here for many years. I think MaeChee Amy lived here for 8 years. Currently, she's helping Ajahn Anan in his monastery. So I left a hole in the middle of the concrete connected with the earth. And I decided to place 33 Bodhi tree seeds from the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. It was symbolic of, I'm planting, the chedi is like a Bodhi tree. We're planting Bodhi here. This is a Buddhist place for the realization of wisdom. Planted, put in this green container, there were 33 Bodhi tree seeds. And so we placed it at the very foundation, had a little ceremony, and then laid the first bricks. Every month, more unloading. Ajahn Anan comes second visit. And something very interesting happened on this day. We could hear the rain in the distance, but it didn't rain on us. We were experiencing fog. And at the end of the ceremony, Ajahn Anan said, we should thank the Nagas who formed a wall and stopped the rain from raining on our ceremony. And everybody said, thank you, Nagas, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That's what he said. We could hear the rain 200 meters away, and we stayed dry. And we placed the foundation plaque. So Ajahn Anan is right there. Very nice. Here we're getting urns, traditional ceramics of a Thai style to place blessed amulets in. Another ceremony, Ajahn Yaniko, current abbot of Abhayagiri, joined that ceremony. Ajahn Bum, who ordained with me, another abbot in Ubon. Ajahn Sunando. Here we have our nice urns full of blessed amulets. We have Indra, Nagas, dragons, and this is traditional. In Sukhothai ceramics, they would have images of fish, which was an image of abundance, food for Thai people. And here we have some sandstone carvings. In my design, I wanted to have panels which represented the 4 holy sites of India. The first 2 that arrived was actually the birth and the delighting in the bliss of liberation after enlightenment. So this is a 2 by 4 meter piece of sandstone, one piece, 30 centimeters thick, carved in Korat province. And here's the birth of the Bodhisattva with Indra and Brahma, his mother Mahamani Deva and her attendants under the Sala trees in the Sala Grove. So I decided that I wanted the sculpture in the chedi to act as a wall which held up the chedi for several reasons, so that they don't fall out or fall off in a small earthquake. So they'd be basically bricked in, but they would also function as the wall that helped to hold up the next level. So it's a very nice sculpture work. Luang Por Piak also came. Luang Por Piak did some, we did 108 Itipiso chants. And this was very important because I think it's okay to mention these. Most people recognize that Luang Por Piak is a special monk, and this is his last life. So he's an arahant with special abilities, as I believe Ajahn Anan to be. And so he has special abilities, and while we chanted the 108 Itipiso chants, he had the ability to determine the merit of the Buddha to manifest as a jeweled wall around the monastery. So that's called a gampang gao, a jeweled wall. And such jeweled walls can be up to 7 layers thick. And and also it doesn't always happen on the first time, but he announced at the end of the ceremony that the monastery now had 3 layers of jeweled wall around it. This was important because among the ghosts from the war era, not all of them were friendly. You understood that communists were anti-Buddhism, and they were anti-monarchy, and they were anti-Thai government. They were very attached to the land. So there were some entities that did not want the monastery to succeed, and having a protection from hostile entities was a good thing. So that was very auspicious for the monastery that Luang Por Piak was able to do that. You're not going to hear this information from many monks, but great arahants can manifest jeweled walls. It's in a parallel reality. It's in a more subtle realm. So that's what the ghosts would be able to see it. The devas would be able to see it. Most human beings can't see it. And it's literally made of the merit of the Buddha. The Buddha spent all those thousands of eons accumulating merit. Great monks can tap into that merit and determine it to manifest in certain ways. And, so he also put some special blessings and protections. Not only putting special blessings and protections, we did dedications of the merit ceremonies each time one of these great monks came, and we dedicated merits to the ghosts. And Luang Por Piak told me that about 10,000 of them were reborn spontaneously in heaven realms. So it's a beautiful thing to contemplate, that even one is temporarily in a ghost state. If you have right view, if you can rejoice in the merit, if you have faith, if you know how to pay respects, when people dedicate merit, if you rejoice in that merit, that your mind can shift from a ghost state to a deva state in a mind moment, and you get spontaneously reborn several realms above. This apparently did occur. I do not think Luang Por Piak would tell any lies. He's got nothing to prove. I asked him, he told me 10,000 of those ghosts were spontaneously reborn in heaven. Of those that weren't reborn in heaven, their situation improved, so that although they are still in a less than human state, they have more merit and more happiness, and they are accumulating merit to move on. Sometimes ghosts can go from a ghost state to a earthbound deva state, which is a Bhuma deva, or from a Bhuma deva. We do in the Dhammacakka Sutta, Bhuma nang deva nang sadang sutawa. The Bhuma devas told the Dawatimsa devas, etc. So once again, I tried to involve everybody, putting blessed amulets inside the chedi. Luang Por Piak was pleased with how the ceremony had gone. Blessed everybody with holy water. Here the bodhisattvas have arrived from China. So I wanted 4 sides to represent the 4 holy sites in India, and I wanted the other 4 sides, like north, south, east, and west, and then you've got northeast, southeast, etc. I wanted that to represent the 4 holy mountains in China. So we have Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva on the diagonal corner, and then we had Siddhigarbha, another. So again, we were working with the same factory in China, and as you can see, this is a 70 centimeter thick piece of rock. The relief carving is only 30 centimeters thick, so the other 40 centimeters became part of the wall, which held up the next level. Ajahn Jayasaro visited. He was also one of my first teachers, and he was one of the chanting monks in my ordination ceremony, one of my fathers in the holy life. We must be in the 7th year now. So this is what the monastery is looking like from the 3rd level of the chedi. I took the photo myself. You can see the forest slowly growing. The next layer of statues, replicas of Buddha Metta in Bodh Luang Por Pasanno passed through around New Year's. We timed the enshrining of the Buddha Metta statues with Luang Por Pasanno's visit. Green marble from Rajasthan. I wanted to have bodhisattvas on either side, MaeChee and Avalokiteshvara, like you see in Ajanta and Ellora caves. The Buddha is often flanked in by bodhisattvas. So what are bodhisattvas? Bodhisattvas are future Buddhas. So they were carved on site. You can see they were just rocks. I was working with a team helping to supervise the carving of them. Quite beautiful when they were finished. Luang Por Piak visits again, more blessed amulets. So each level of the chedi, we put in another 50,000 blessed amulets, so that's 300,000 blessed amulets inside the Anandagiri chedi, blessed by Luang Por Piak and Ajahn Anan. Involving all of the villagers, as always. And also the lay people would bring their blessed things and relinquish them. And it's a beautiful tradition in Thailand where the lay people relinquish some of their blessed things or their precious things and put them in these urns also. So you can see, trees are growing for 7 years. Ajahn Anan visits again. So this, I believe, was my birthday, I think, 4 years ago. One of Ajahn Anand's visits synchronized with my birthday. Looking much healthier, steady on his feet. We're also happy. Ajahn experiencing good health. What's this mysterious yellow thing? I don't know. Something special. Malaysian group actually chanted the Heart Sutra in Mandarin and the Mahakaruna Dharani in Tibetan. Ajahn Anan appreciated it. Local sightseeing. Ajahn Anan taking his monks to see the local windmills. Next layer of statues is replicas of the teaching Buddha from Sarnath Museum in India. So this Rajasthani marble can come in 2 by 2 by 4 meter blocks. And then we were chopping those blocks into 4 pieces to make 4 statues. Normally they chop these blocks into thin pieces to make kitchen tabletops or floor tiles, but we chop them into big chunks to be beautiful Buddha statues. Sometimes big Ajahns came and supervised these ceremonies. Sometimes I was the medium Ajahn, not so big, not so small. And as you can see, we learned that big cranes could get up the mountain. So we had something for the crane to do now. Many people come and look at our chedi and they think that I contracted out some construction firm engineers. I didn't. I drew the design myself. I supervised the work myself. I learned as I went along. And the bricklayers, I'm not joking, were rice farmers. And the way I taught them to lay bricks was the same way. If it wasn't straight, I made them undo it and I made them do it again. I told them, I don't care if it's just 1 layer a day or 2 layers a day. It has to be straight. And they did very well. Luang Por Pasanno came again. I think Luang Por Pasanno has visited us 5 or 6 times. Very grateful that Luang Por has come and given us his. So as you can see, we did need this larger space. One of the challenges of monasteries in Thailand, forest monasteries, is on average, I may have 5 or 6 monks, 1 or 2 nuns, 10 lay people. But there are a couple of times a year where it will be 30 monks and 500 lay people. And so it is a challenge to build the infrastructure in a way where you can receive your supporters and your students, help them make merit, give them teachings, distribute Dhamma books, because many people come from many different provinces. At the same time, you don't want the monks having to clean large infrastructure all the time when it's just a place for 6 or 7 people. So this outdoor practice area, it's just a lovely place to go and practice on an ordinary day. It's a lovely place to sweep and clean. And I chose granite, which is exactly the color of dry dirt, so that with a little black fleck, so that even if it has some dirt or some lizard poo, some tiny little leaves, you hardly notice. It looks clean. So, but we do need these large spaces to receive our guests on these big days. And we get to hire toilet trucks with 6 toilets in them and tents for. We don't build the toilet blocks to have to clean lots of toilets all the time. We rent toilets, we rent tents, we rent a kind of trucks that ferry people from down the village so that we don't have to have a huge car park, etc. We have to liaise. Like I said, when you become an abbot in Thailand, you end up learning all sorts of skills like event functions, hosting events. It's one of them. And I hadn't actually thought of it, but I realized once I'd built it already that the steps leading up to the chedi worked very well for a place for the monks to sit in the shade on the morning of the Katina. It just worked out that way. Very nice. Our first drone shots. The first 4 levels of the chedi almost done. Forest beginning to grow. Auspicious rainbow. So this concrete pump would have to come up the hill and pump concrete into the wall. So the walls of the chedi are 50 centimeters thick, and there's a 60 centimeter thick slab every 2 meters to carry the weight of the next layer of statues. But thank goodness they have this technology and they can get up the hill. The next layer of statues is based on a famous image from Phetchabun, Buddha Chinarad. You can see how big they were. But this one, we actually decided to cut the block into 2 pieces, not 4 pieces. We cut it horizontally. So these ones are longer and bigger. It was one of the main sponsors. So K Jintina offered one side of statues, and another man, Khun Pongpan, offered, I believe he's here, yes, he offered one side of statues of the chedi. So as I was saying, you need big sponsors, and then you need thousands of small sponsors to bring these projects together. Everybody's very happy to be able to chip in. And, I think if they get too small, the higher it goes, you can't see the details. So the way it is now is if you sit 3 meters in front of the chedi and look up, you can see all of the Buddha's faces looking down at you, smiling. So that was part of my design. Here are my rice farmers. Beautiful green marble. And visits again. So that Ajahn Anan is getting fit enough to climb up himself now and place objects into the chedi. You have to do your fair share of baby cuddling as an abbot in Thailand, and I like it anyway. I love to cuddle babies for 5 minutes. Napoleon visited, my preceptor, abbot of Wat Nong Pha Pong. I was in India at the time, but I was very grateful that he was able to come. Luang Por Piak visits. Here, Luang Por Piak is looking at the relics to decipher which ones are from Buddhas, which ones are from Pacceka Buddhas, which ones are from Arahants, which ones are from monks who had jhana, and which ones are from devas. And he had the ability to do that, and he separated them all out for me. The reason he needed to do that was I wanted to place them in hierarchy according to Buddhas on top, Pacceka Buddhas next, Arahants next, and then etc. So he helped separate out what it all was, because to me they just look like little pebbles, but to him, he could see. On one of these ceremonies, Luang Por Piak was surprised himself because he adhitans the most auspicious blessings possible, but they don't always manifest. And in this ceremony, what manifested is what's called a diamond shield. A diamond shield made of the merit of the Buddha protected our chedi. And one thing that Ajahn Anan did was he established a pathway between the chedi and the heaven realms so that the devas can come down and circumambulate and pay respects easily. So there's like a tollway from the chedi to heaven and a diamond shield keeping out obstructive influences. So as I was saying, originally the monastery had a lot of sad, heavy feelings around it. Sometimes all of the monks would get a headache on the same day, didn't really know why. And then obviously since putting 300,000 blessed amulets in the chedi, Luang Por Piak visiting 4 times, Ajahn Anan visiting 5 times, and these various ceremonies, the monastery feels like a very blessed place now. Whenever the great monks come, big crowds come too. The final layer of statues based on the Emerald Buddha in Bangkok. Who's that? It was really fun when these days were quite fun. So this man used to be an accountant. He's my caretaker, and I have trained him to be a painter, a bricklayer, a driver, a welder, and he still helps with the accounting. So one of the things I'm really grateful for my life in Thailand about is, in Thailand, you don't need to have a degree to try your hand at something in rural Thailand. Like, although it was stressful to learn many skills all at the same time, quite exhausting, and especially when you want to have a simple life. The other part of the equation is, in terms of having creative challenges, and in terms of having opportunities to contribute to projects which are significant. It's like, if I was in Australia, I would not have been able to accomplish establishing a 60-acre forest. I would not have been able to take the lead in building a 23-meter chedi. I would not have been able to be the one that designed the meditation hall. So it's like, yeah, it was a bit stressful on one level. And on another level, what a wonderful opportunity. I learned about architecture, engineering, reforestation, sacred art, social work, scholarships, all sorts of things. And then now that I know how to do it and it's not so exhausting, I'm just so grateful that Thailand and the generous Thai people, on one level it's stressful. People make a donation and then you have to make it the thing that they wanted to offer. It's quite stressful at times. On the other hand, what a great opportunity that you help people to make the merit that they want to make, and you learn all sorts of skills, and you can look back at it and you can feel wholesome pride. Wow, look what I actually managed to do there. And I'm grateful that the Thai people and Malaysian people and international students have trusted me with resources to liaise and facilitate and help to create this place. You can see the handiwork there using fishing string to get the angle of the bricks, the right angle. High tech it was. Fishing string. He didn't help that much, but he really wanted to help with the part that would contain the Buddha relics. He was determined that he would get the serious merit of helping to create the reliquary that contained the Buddha relics. So during this period, Ajahn was very helpful. Many other days, I never saw him at the building site. Finished. And that's the hole where the reliquary will be placed. And that's the view from on top of the chedi. After 9 years now. In the rainy season, beautiful, misty, fluffy clouds. And this is the view from edge of the property. You can see the forest is growing very nicely. Here we're working on the chedi spire based on the one from Bokaya. We went up to invite it with the villagers. We hired a big bus, took the villagers up to formally invite the chedi spire back to Anandagiri. 6 pieces of Ratchathani green marble, 6 meters tall. A lot of beautiful detail. So the reason I put this here is just to mention, as the resources that came to the monastery to build the chedi, obviously we were I thought it would take 5 years. It took 33 months to build a chedi. As I said, Thai people love building chedis. Someday someone I'd never met before would turn up and say, can I sponsor one of the statues in the chedi? Thai people love building chedis. So I made the point to continue to give the scholarships. So every child in the village that goes to school once a year gets a bursary. These are the kindergarten kids, aren't they cute? Here we have the first graders going up in ages. So this one graduated from university. Students of mine sponsored her university education. This one is currently in university, and so is this one. She's studying architecture. She graduated from English, and this one is studying IT, I believe. So that's all the kids in the village coming up for their annual bursary. And, you can see the bodhi tree that we replanted, the 62-year-old bodhi tree, which is 69 in this picture. It grew back very well. Now it looks like it was always there. It's very interesting. So now something else has arrived. The chedi, they call it a chat in Thai, the the crown ornament for the chedi has arrived, and we're marching it in officially with incense and chanting. And we're opening it together. And my dear mum was able to attend this ceremony. So this part is pure gold. This part is gold leaf, but these are real jewels. And then there were bells. This is pure silver. This is rose gold. The bodhi leaves are pure gold. I was thinking this chedis cost a lot. I don't want to mention to people, but I felt like I should give people the opportunity if I wanted. I never saw money flow into an account so quickly in all my life. When these Southeast Asians knew that they could sponsor gold bodhi leaves on bells at the top of the chedi and jewels at the top of it, wow. They love it. It was not difficult to find the resources for the reliquary or the crowning ornament or the bells. It was very beautiful. Then I decided to show everybody the reliquary that we've been working on. It was quite the phenomenon where I just wanted a series of vessels to put the relics in. But the jeweler said, well, we should put in some devas, or how about some elephants? And every time he had an idea, then he knew of people who wanted to sponsor them. He was kind of famous for making these reliquaries for chedis in Thailand. And then a student decided that she wanted to offer a pure gold Buddha, a rose gold Buddha, a silver Buddha. And Ajahn Anan donated some of the most precious and special amulets. So this is don't misunderstand this. This is a giving away of wealth in honor and gratitude and love and respect to the Buddha. It's very beautiful. And of course, it's also understood that in one's rebirth, there will be wealth and abundance. One will have a comfortable situation from which one will have the privilege and opportunity to practice and the auspicious karmic connection with Buddhism. So there's two things: relinquishing one's wealth as a practice of dana, and also sowing potent merits for one's future happiness in samsara towards liberation. So now I'm going to show you the incredible things that went inside the chedi. Here's the main reliquary. These are real sapphires. This is real gold. Yes. Yes, that's gold, lotus petals. This is rutilated quartz. It's not so precious, but it was so beautiful. But these are real sapphires. Jewel tree, replica of the Emerald Buddha, gold Buddha, silver elephant, my mum. Buddhas carved from lead crystal, pearls, precious amulets, crystal Kuan Yin, silver and gold elephant, silver devas. So these were silver, the gold. So this is silver which has been gold plated, which is cheaper, but the main reliquary is pure gold, where the Buddha relics go. And these are real diamonds. So one lady decided that she wanted to relinquish her inheritance from her mother and her wedding jewelry. So she gave up her earrings, her necklaces, and she didn't have children, and she decided that she wanted her inheritance to go as a Buddha puja. So these are real diamonds. This is a real sapphire. This is real gold. So I had to install a safe and CCTV upstairs at my kuti, which, I wasn't thinking I would ever have to do it in a forest monastery, but that's what happened. And Ajahn Anan, he told me, you have to put in CCTV, you have to get safes. And my brother came to the ceremony with my mother, and my brother took many of these photographs. He's a very good photographer. So these are 10 Somdet Do amulets. These are the most prized amulets in Thailand, and this was a gift from my teacher, Ajahn Anan. to put in Thailand. So why are they so prized? Somdet Do is believed to have been an incarnation of Maitreya Bodhisattva. So he is very, very powerful metta as the future Buddha of metta with enormous samadhi and incredible metta. He put his blessings into these things. The reason they became so famous is because many people who had one, when they were in an accident, walked away from the accident without harm. That's how these things develop their fame, is that they stand the test of time to be very effective in protecting people against harm. So Tanata very kindly offered 10 of those. So this is some of the reliquaries. Tanata offered this one. This is pure silver, and he also offered it full of relics. So I told the jeweler I liked lotuses. Please incorporate lotuses into design. But he also incorporated the traditional Thai designs. This is a jasmine garland made of silver, gold-plated. Gold Buddha, rose gold Buddha, silver Buddha. And a Buddha replica. I don't know, I think the symbolism of the ship is to sail from samsara to nibbana, to cross safely to the other shore. So the person who offered this made it with the wish that they may cross to the shore of nibbana safely. Devas, Lord Buddha's teachings leading to heaven and beyond. These are how many are there? These are the necessary accoutrement of a wheel-turning monarch. So the Buddha talks about this in the sutras. There's the crown, there's the fan, there's the whisk, there's the sword, there's a wish-fulfilling jewel, various things, something that a wheel-turning monarch must have. So this is a real emerald, a real sapphire, a real ruby around the reliquary. Now we're preparing the foundation. I like to put, one should give things that one likes. So I like amber, everybody knows. Most people know. I don't know if you like amber. So I prepared the base of the reliquary with amber and crystals. And my Malaysian friends and Thai friends helped me prepare the base with amber and crystals. And then I poured about a half a liter of lavender and rose geranium oil into the crystals and amber so that it would be fragrant. Here's the amber. So it was the Katina day the day before. Many people have come to the Katina, as you can see, filling up that lovely space we created. My brother was on top of the chedi taking pictures of the proceedings from the top. So, my dear mum. Big Malaysian group that year. So this is a happy Ajahn Achalo. I'm exhausted, but I'm content. The chedi is going to be finished. The monks are here, the lay people are here. It's going to be over soon. And I can get back to being an ordinary, simple monk again. Scaffolding, obviously, set up so that we can walk up. Lovely drone shot. Ajahn Anan has a monk who's very gifted with drone photography. So he brought his monk along. I love this photo, following in the steps of my beloved Ajahn. Ajahn was giving a Dhamma talk about chedis, why we build them, what they represent, the merits it produces, how to relate to them skillfully, as a place of practice. Here we have all the goodies. I never planned, expected, or realized that we would have such abundance. But we did. The faithful laity are generous. These are a portion of the relics. So as I said, they just look like stones. But when monks like Ajahn Pasanno and Ajahn Anan look at them, they can see the radiance around them, and from which, so what happens is when they cremate the body, from the ashes and the blood and the lymph, relics form that contain a portion of the merit of the great enlightened being, so that human beings can pay respects to them. Ajahn is. So we dropped some sandalwood oil in, we ritually bathed them, the Buddha relics, and Ajahn oversaw that. He was healthy and strong enough to climb all the way to the top. He actually trained to be fit enough to do that. Bless him. So by now you can understand that although I was disappointed that my dear Ajahn wasn't able to come for the first 5 years, by now I'm very grateful and feel totally blessed and supported by my dear Ajahn that he came so many times. So. I recently, when I was compiling this slideshow, I was looking at these pictures and I'm literally like, oh, that monk came. Oh, that monk came too. Oh, did he come as well? Because at the ceremony, I was so concerned with taking care of the relics and the reliquary, making sure my mum was okay, taking care of the visiting Arahant. Everything else was a blur. I'm like, now I go and look and say, oh, that person came, oh, that person came. Well, that's nice. Glad they were there too. It's really nice to be up there under the sky, my dear Ajahn and Bhikkhu friends putting these precious things in. And so what's Sanada looking at? Something auspicious in the sky. Some people say this looks a bit like a dragon. You see the head here and the tail. Some people say this looks a bit like a phoenix. What's curious is the Chinese and Malaysians were chanting the Heart Sutra in Mandarin. Dragons and phoenixes are associated with Chinese Buddhism. Some people say this looks like a carp, which is an auspicious sign for longevity to the Chinese. So there it all is, the whole kit and caboodle. And apparently it emanates great quality of light and clarity and merit. And people who come and meditate near chedis, that's my experience, is that you can become more peaceful more quickly because the presence of the merit of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arahants helps your mind to be peaceful. So, as to my vow, I was dedicating the merit of building the chedi to the ghosts and making the wish, may they finally take their auspicious rebirth and move on to a happier destination. And my dear Ajahn was increasing the power of my prayers by pumping my body and mind full of good energy. So I was a bit like a satellite dish, and he was the he was the generator. So we put this high-rise glass, 2 centimeter thick glass on top. Some of the drone pictures while we were doing a ceremony. So here the top has been placed on already by this very large crane. After that, I had to place the crowning ornament, the parasol. So before I got up, so that's me inside this cage, this little cage, 25 meters in the sky. My mum was at the ceremony, and I turned around and I said, "Mum, if I die while doing this ceremony, don't worry, I died happy." There she is. Got to pay respects to Ajahn Anan. I was so happy. Here we are placing the parasol. Not only did we have to place the parasol, we then had to place the lightning rod through the crystal, through the middle of the parasol into the, because we do get summer storms. So now the lightning goes through the chedi. Ajahn Anan had to rush back. A nun who was a long-term student had to go to hospital, and so I led the dedication of the chedi myself. This is, I think, a year later, drone shots in the hot season. So you just get a sense for how nicely the forest is growing and how beautifully. I specifically chose granite bricks, which are the color of tree trunks, and marble, which is the color of tree leaves, because I wanted the chedi to match with nature as much as possible. So whoever would have thought that after 10 years, Anandagiri would look so beautiful and be so well supported? I had no idea. And of course, I did have my visa challenge. I was kind of just being optimistic, you know. I knew I had up to 10 years on my visa, and I was just being hopeful that if I made enough merit, some way there'd be a way around it. And I really wasn't sure. In my 10th year, I actually got a bit frustrated, and I went to the chedi and I raised my voice at the devas. I said, "You guys, I built this chedi. I dedicated merit. 10,000 ghosts got born in heaven, and I don't even have a visa for another year. Like, seriously? It's like, you just like took the merit and run? Is anyone going to help me? Come on, guys." I was a bit baffled because I believe in karma, and apparently making chedis creates merit. So I told Ajahn this at his birthday, and he thought this was very funny. He said, "Only a Western monk would yell at devas." And I said, "Well, I love devas very much. So for me to be yelling at them, you must appreciate just how let down I feel." So anyway, then I think from that moment on, Ajahn Anan started to come up with a bit of a plan, I think, to help Ajahn Achalo to be able to stay. So now we're in the 11th year, as I said, 10 plus years of Anandagiri. This was part of my positive affirmation. I started making the abbot's kuti, doing Itipiso chants while laying the bricks and making the determination. This is where I'm intending to die. This is Ajahn Achalo's kuti. So I didn't have a visa at the time, but I had made my application for permanent residency and was under consideration. Auntie Malin, helping with the bricklaying. So yes, I finally made my dad proud by laying the bricks by myself. Coming along. Here it is once it's finished. This is my walking meditation path in front of my kuti, alongside the Nepalese chedi. I designed, engineered, laid the bricks. I didn't do the welding or the tile laying, but was working with my accountant / handyman. This is where I'm teaching you right now, sharing my experience with you from this place. That's my view of you on this screen. And there's the most recent addition to the community, my new cat, the gal. And this is the proposed new Dana hall, which is under construction now. I want to point here, you see this yellow thing here? This is to tie my idea of a Nepalese Bhutanese theme together. It all gets tied together here. You'll notice that I want the back wall to be all windows so that people, when they come into the Dana hall, they see the mountains and the forests that we've created and the sky, that they feel connected to nature, this front half is open, so you literally just feel that you're sitting among the trees. But I appreciate Nepalese art, as I've mentioned many times, and I've made some connections in a place called Patan in the Kathmandu Valley. And I met a great artist, and we commissioned a piece of work of, firstly, this Buddha statue as well. After working with Chedi, I knew these artists. I wanted a perfect Indian Buddhist inspired Buddha. And I never felt that the Thais, they don't really know how to do it. So with committee's permission, we actually flew the head sculptor to India to study the Buddha statues in the museum so that they could get the proportions right, because Thai Buddhas and Indian Buddhas have different proportions. Thai Buddhas sit in half lotus usually, so they have broader knees and they make the heads quite big. So Indian Buddhas have closer together knees, broader shoulders, smaller heads. And I wanted him to understand that. And so we worked on this for 2 years. This is my gift to Buddhist art in Thailand. I really believe that this is a beautiful Indian Buddhist art inspired Buddhist statue that's going to go in our Dharma hall. It's here now because it needs to go in before the walls and the roof, just like in the meditation hall. But we also have this, my dear teacher, blessed already. We also have this piece, that's the thing I was pointing to in front of the Dharma hall. This is, they call repose. It's not cast, it's panel beaten. So this was 2 years of work to make the finest detail, beautiful copper paneled 5 Buddhas, Ananda and Mahakassapa, Naga goddesses, Tibetan auspicious symbols, and it's currently being gold plated, and that will be at the entrance of the Dharma hall. Okay, that was a big jump. There's a reason we're now at the Emerald Buddha. Ajahn Anan invited me to join him. We were staying at the Emerald Buddha. He was meeting with the Thai king. When he met with the Thai king, he invited Ajahn Achalo to come along. And this is when the king asked me, His Majesty asked me, which country are you from? How long have you lived in Thailand? The consequence of this meeting was when I left the room, His Majesty asked Ajahn Anan, can we invite that Australian monk next time to offer teachings at the palace? Because the king spent 4 years in Australia. His Majesty spent 4 years in Australia and graduated from Duntroon Military Academy in Canberra. And he has an affection for Australian people. And so I was invited to come back to the palace. And this is when Ajahn Anan got his official title and ceremonial fan. Attended the ceremony. And so this is when I went to stay at the Emerald Buddha, and I was invited to the palace. Having the opportunity to chant and meditate alone in the Emerald Buddha is incredible honor, and very, very touched and honored to have had the opportunity. This is in the Vihara of the protective deity of Thailand, Pratsiam Tewatirat. I was able to meditate in there as well. Because of COVID, there's usually 10, 20, 30,000 visitors to the Temple of the Emerald Buddha each day. Because of COVID, it was closed. We had it to ourselves. Ajahn Anan very kindly gave me some of Ajahn Chah's hair relics to offer to His Majesty. That was really beautiful. I was a bit scared meeting powerful, influential people. It's a bit scary for shy forest monks who live on mountains in small communities. So I felt like I had Luang Por Chah's blessing and Ajahn Anand's blessing when I met His Majesty. And to be honest, His Majesty was very sweet and kind and not frightening. He was very welcoming and gracious, and we enjoyed Dharma discourse. So after this first meeting where I was able to talk with His Majesty, he asked me about my visa situation. And then he asked me if I wanted to actually be Thai, at which point I told him, since I ordained at Wat Nong Pha Pong Ajahn Chah's monastery 25 years ago, I felt that was a rebirth. I felt that I was reborn as a bhikkhu in Thailand, and this body is now made of Thai food. And yes, I would like to die in this country. So he asked me a second time, do you want Thai citizenship? I said, yes. And I gave him a copy of the biography that I had to write for my permanent residency application. When monks apply for permanent residency, they have to produce a biography. And the title chapter of the biography, the first chapter says, Dek Chai Brett, Dek Gert Piti, which means the little boy Brett who was born in the wrong place. Because when I was a little boy, I really felt like I was in the wrong place. And I didn't know where the right place was, but I knew it wasn't the right place. When I came to Thailand many years later, I did feel at home. So when you go to offer teachings to His Majesty, you do it 2 consecutive nights. And so on my second night, when His Majesty came into the room, he said to me, with regards to Brett, the little boy who was born in the wrong place, you're a Thai citizen today. I signed the papers, and the Department of the Ministry of the Interior signed the papers. You and the consort, his consort, said, you should feel free to live in Thailand for as long as you like. And it is our merit that you wish to live with us. So very gracious, very beautiful, very touching, incredible honor. So I'm honored. And we had some pleasant Dharma discussion. He wanted to know how an Australian developed faith in Buddhism, became a monk and stayed a monk for more than 20 years. And on the second night, he wanted to know how is it possible to meditate 10 hours a day for more than a month at a time. So we shared, and I also asked him a little bit about his experience studying overseas. And he actually came to this area to help fight the communists after he graduated from the military academy. It turned out that we had quite a few things in common that we could talk about. I was concerned that we wouldn't be able to talk about much, but we had lots to talk about. And it went very well. And so when a monk goes to offer teachings at the palace, he's given one of these fans, which is behind me here. And this is also a kind of a statement that the other fan is coming. So what it means is you are going to be honored with a title. And so a couple of days later, His Majesty instructed people from the office of wherever they make citizenship cards, ID cards. He told them to come to see me where I stayed and issue my ID card. And I changed my name officially. I asked Ajahn Anan, may I have his surname? Ajahn Anan's surname is Jan In, which is the moon and Indra. That's my surname now. So Pra Achalo Bhikkhu Jan In, Ajahn Anan's surname. They measured me, they took my photo, they took my fingerprints, and they offered me my Pra Achalo Bhikkhu Jan In, my ID card. So Ajahn Anan came to our cantina and then to my ceremony where I was given the title of Pravajira Jnanamuni. Ajahn Anan is Pravajira Jnan. So Ajahn Anan was the head monk at my own ceremony where I was given one of these ceremonial fans by the Privy Councillor. Here's the certificate, here's the fan, here's the robe from His Majesty. Here's Ajahn Anan looking pleased with his disciple, giving me his blessing. And here I am with a ribbon tied on for the occasion. These beautiful flowers from Kunming that Linda picked up from the flower market in Bangkok. Cliff and Linda picked up these beautiful flowers. I wanted champagne colored. We did go to a bit of effort to make some very nice flowers because it's a bit like I don't know. I never went to prom. I never graduated from university. So this was kind of my day for flowers, you know, my big day. So these yellow flowers are from the Royal Project in Chiang Mai. Yom Dongjai arranged those. These orange ones and these cantaloupe ones are from Kunming, and they came from the Bangkok flower market that very morning, or the morning before. We arranged them the night before so that I could pose with all these flowers. That's the certificate, that's the robe, that's the fan. Luang Por Chah, of course, our dear venerable grandfather. Most recently, year 11 of Anandagiri, Ajahn Anan insisted that I come and help to give one of the talks at Wat Nong Pha Pong Ajahn Chah's monastery on his birthday. So with some reluctance, you know, I am a bit shy. When I'm talking to my online group, I'm not so shy. I feel like you're all friends. But when it comes to sitting on a high chair with the camera staring at you with another 4,000 people looking on Facebook Live and with many of the monks behind you on the stage, actually having studied with and lived with Luang Por Chah, it's a bit intimidating to sit on that chair and talk about the way Luang Por Chah lived and taught. But at the same time, the next generation does have to rise to the occasion. It's like a relay. We have to take the baton and we have to run with it next. So Ajahn Anan was dragging me there. I got a very dry throat. I had to keep sipping water. Many people commented about it. But for me, it was a success, just the fact that I got through half an hour on that seat. And I'm sure that the second time won't be as hard as the first time. Luang Por Liam, my dear preceptor, seemed glad that we came. In Ajahn Chah's reliquary. Because of the COVID situation, there was a limit of 300 people, so we were able to get some nice pictures with smaller crowds than normal. So here we have just a little bit of a flash coming towards the end of this. Here we are at 1 year. Here we are at 11 years. 1 year, 11 years. 5 years, 6 years, 11 years. 1 year, 11 years. Day 1, 11 years. Day 1. I think this was about 9 years. After 1 year, after 10 years. This is how lay people have started building houses in front of the monastery now. So that we are literally covering this mountain in Nepali inspired architecture and beautiful trees. The view from the chedi, looking west. The view from the Mahaterakuti. So most of these trees that you can see are among the 25,000 that we planted. And we can see now that cutting the grass 5 times a year, fertilizing, etc., was fruitful. And that concludes the slideshow and commentary of 10 plus years of Anandagiri. Thank you to everybody who has been involved in supporting the project. I appreciate that you had faith and trusted me to share resources, and I'm very pleased that we consistently have a bhikkhu community and nun and lay people coming to practice. We do have, of course, before COVID, we just finished some more accommodation for Malaysians or foreign students to be able to come and do self-retreats here. And then it hasn't happened for 2 years because of the COVID situation, but we have developed our infrastructure to support lay people to have intensive retreats here. And but every cloud has a silver lining. The COVID situation has meant that I learned how to do online teaching and have been able to reach people overseas from my nice new kuti. So I hope that you also feel pleased with your association and with the results of your generosity. And this is just one forest monastery among many thousands in this nation. in a lineage 2,500 years old, depending on lay people supporting the monastics and monastics sharing the teaching and the Dharma wheel continuing to turn in the world. So that concludes my commentary. I hope you appreciated a glimpse into the process and journey. I'm also happy to share the merits that have accrued through leading, facilitating, liaising this project with all of you. May we all continue to grow in Dhamma.
Rajan,
Yes.
may the merits that arises from this immense effort and hard work from bringing up Anandagiri, what it is today, may it bring you a long life, good health, and to live long enough to be our teacher as long as you can, expounding Dharma to everyone and to the benefit of every living being.